This video is going to look at the Anglo-Irish Agreement of 1985. So the Anglo-Irish Agreement was signed on the 15th of November 1985 and was signed by British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and Irish Taoiseach Garret FitzGerald at Hillsborough Castle in County Down. Really significant part of the peace process and a real attempt to address the troubles in Northern Ireland. So a bit of background then. So why was the agreement signed in the first place? Well, there's lots of things that sort of led up to the agreement. The first thing was the rise of Sinn Féin. So the hunger strikes of 1981 had definitely transformed politics in Northern Ireland. The Republican Party, Sinn Féin, had increased its popularity, and Gerry Adams had become MP for West Belfast in 1983. The moderate SDLP, in contrast, they were losing votes to Sinn Féin. This really worried, well, not just the SDLP, but it worried the British and Irish governments as well, because they felt a deal could only be reached with the SDLP, who are much more moderate, and not the more militant Sinn Féin. And a deal was needed to reduce support for Sinn Féin. And you can see in the graph here how Sinn Féin's support has started to rise and SDLP's support has started to decline. This is what's worried the British government and Irish government. So there's also the role of John Hume. So John Hume, the SDLP leader, had been working with the Irish government on lots of different ways to try to get new proposals to find a peaceful way forward for Northern Ireland. And they got involved in this New Ireland Forum, started looking to ideas about how Ireland could move forward. They were looking at things like joint authority, trying to persuade units into United Ireland, and a federal Ireland. This was not supported by Unionists, obviously, and Sinn Féin and the IRA were not invited because of their connections to violence, and its ideas were rejected by the British government. But these sorts of ideas and this sort of forum really did allow for discussions about future progress politically in Ireland. There's also the issue for the British of security. It seemed highly unlikely that a deal would ever have actually been taken place at all, because in 1984, a huge bomb ripped through the Grand Hotel in Brighton and very narrowly missed killing Margaret Thatcher, the British Prime Minister colleagues. However, the British were eager to get a deal with the Republic of Ireland because they felt that this would really help security. It would allow IRA prisoners in the Republic of Ireland to be transferred to Northern Ireland, much more cooperation as well between the two sides whenever it came to security. And Thatcher also wanted to reduce support for the IRA, and a role for the Republic of Ireland in Northern Ireland's affairs could really help to reduce that IRA support and Sinn Féin support, and could lead to a rise in the SDLP and actually help to heal Catholic mistrust of the British government following the hunger strikes. For the Irish government, well, the Irish government wanted to reduce support for Sinn Féin as well, and they wanted to increase support for the SDLP, and they wanted to see hostility towards the British decrease, because they knew that any meaningful deal for Northern Ireland or all of Ireland would be dependent on how people felt about the British, and if they felt better about the British, well, then that would cause support for Sinn Féin and Virgin IRA to decrease. So the Anglo-Irish Agreement was signed by these two leaders. You have to get these names into your head. So Garret FitzGerald is the Irish Taoiseach and British Prime Minister is Margaret Thatcher. And don't forget, the Anglo-Irish Agreement is exactly what it says in the tin. It's between the British government, the Anglo side, and between the Irish government. There are no political parties involved in this agreement. Okay, so it's solely between the two governments. What are the terms of the Anglo-Irish Agreement then? Well, it's actually quite simple. The first main thing is this intergovernmental conference. So really long word. All it really means, though, is that the Republic of Ireland is going to have a say in Northern Ireland's affairs for the first time on mutual issues like security, politics and law. This intergovernmental conference is going to be permanent. It involves ministers and officials who actually are going to actually form part of a permanent secretariat, which is based in Merryfield in Belfast, and it has civil servants from the Republic of Ireland and from the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland as well too. Also consent. So consent is a key feature. It's a key feature of all the agreements. So if you ever think about any agreement, consent is nearly always there. Consent is always there, because this is always there to assuage Unionist concerns that they'll be railroaded into United Ireland. So consent again just means that Northern Ireland would remain part of the United Kingdom unless its population voted otherwise. And again, this is aimed at addressing Unionist concerns. Devolution. So devolution is not part of this agreement, but it makes it very clear that the devolution will happen only whenever Northern Ireland parties agree on power sharing. So it's something that might happen in the future, but it's not part of this agreement. Okay, so reactions to the Anglo-Irish Agreement. Well, obviously there's a number of different reactions. The first reaction is Unionists. Unionists are deeply angry about the Anglo-Irish Agreement. They feel betrayed by the British government, by Margaret Thatcher. They believe that it's given the Republic of Ireland a say in Northern Ireland's affairs without their consent. They believe they've been stabbed in the back. They haven't been told about it. The SDLP knew about this agreement, but Unionists were kept in the dark. And there were mass rallies across Northern Ireland, including a huge rally of 100,000 people at Belfast City Hall. There were strikes, there's civil disobedience, there's a day of action, it's called, which shut down Northern Ireland for a day. And Unionists took part in a rent and rate strike. All 15 Unionist MPs in Parliament resigned in protest, and 14 of those were re-elected. And then there's obviously this huge Ulster Says No campaign. And this was started to show their rejection of the agreement. And Ulster Resistance, a new loyalist paramilitary organisation, was set up to sort of add this element of threat as well. What about Nationalists then? Well, Nationalists welcomed the Anglo-Irish Agreement. The SDLP in particular, they've been kept informed about the agreement the whole way through by the Irish government. They welcomed the involvement of the Irish government in a formal role in Northern Ireland, and they acknowledged their Irish identity and their aspirations as well. Republicans, though, very different. Republicans like Sinn Féin really did oppose the Anglo-Irish Agreement because they believe that this formally recognises the partition of Ireland. You're talking about a Northern Ireland state. So this recognition of Northern Ireland as a state fell short of demanding immediate British withdrawal from Ireland. And the IRA, will they continue their valiant campaign for United Ireland? What are the results then? Well, although it didn't end the violence, the agreement improved British-Irish cooperation and lays the foundations for later peace efforts, such as the Good Friday Agreement. It marked a major shift in policy, showing that both governments could actually work together on Northern Ireland's future, and it signalled to nationalists that their concerns were being taken much more seriously by the British government. The Unionist campaign of opposition to the Anglo-Irish Agreement, well, it diminished with time. They realised that they could not change things here. This was already a fait accompli. And Unionists were only a very small part of the British Parliament, so they didn't make much of a difference there. And they also realised that they needed to talk to British ministers to have any say in Northern Ireland's future. So by 1987, they were back talking to British ministers, and this laid the process out for the future and the peace process.